Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coachyourPO. All lowercase, all one word. That's bit.ly/coachyourPO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello everybody, welcome to our Friday TGIF episode this week with Pascal Clarkson. Hi Pascal, welcome back.
Hey Pascal.
So let's dive into the product owner universe, shall we? And let's start this Friday with the bad example. We'll end up with a positive, good example later, but let's start with the bad example. Share with us, Pascal, what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career.
I think the one of the biggest anti-patterns that, well, no, it's not the biggest anti-pattern, but one of the anti-patterns that I've noticed is that when people or a PO actually kind of assesses the team to be autonomous at a certain level, but they're actually not. So it's when the PO says like, okay, I want you to do this, and that. Let me know when it's done, and they're kind of they're still there. They're doing the thing, but they're not seeing that this team actually needs more guidance. They're not seeing that the team actually needs to be a bit more instructed on not really a task level, but a bit more on task level, instead of just like, okay, this is what I want you to do, now go fix it. And I believe that's one of the anti-patterns that we it's not the biggest one, but it's one of the patterns that we don't acknowledge as much.
How does that play out? Like, share with us maybe a story if you have, but how does that play out when the PO, as we were talking about now, expects the team to be at a certain level and treats them as if they were at that level, even though they are not?
Yeah, so the things that you might see happening, and I saw with this team one time, is that people they heard the PO ask them to do certain things, but then they were still not sure on what he actually meant or what it is that they would need to be doing. So a very concrete or a specific example is this PO was asking from his team, like, okay, be more autonomous, just pick up the user stories, start refining them, start figuring out. And these were, he geared it towards the business people, so the people that know about the functionality and what the customer wants. And, just grab these things and start refining them, start figuring out how we can do this, how we can achieve this for our clients. And this person within the team was just not secure enough to make big decisions. They had trouble with figuring out what is it that that I'm supposed to do here now. And from that,
you said this person, but was it the whole team or just one person?
No, this is a specific example is about one person, but he was showing this anti-pattern basically with the whole team. So this was on the business side, developing user stories, but also like on the technical side, there was a person who was fairly new with certain technology and trying to figure that out. And instead of making sure that the team was up to speed on their progress on learning this new technique, it kind of was left up in the air. It was, there were no checks or anything like that. And it might have been an anti-pattern of more than just a PO in that sense. It's about also the accountability that we talked about yesterday. But I really feel that different people have a different level of leadership, or a different way of leadership that they need to get from a leader to be able to respond in a proper way.
Absolutely. So there was one thing that you mentioned that kind of triggered me to think of how this dynamic works, because when the product owner isn't sure of what needs to be done, and they kind of delegate by default that to the team, kind of say, you figure it out, right? And when the product owner does that, but they know exactly what needs to be solved, what customer problem we're addressing, that's great. But when the product owner does that, even though they're not sure what needs to be done, that's bad. And then if you add to that the dynamic of a team member that is insecure about making decisions, these things just start playing off of each other. And soon enough, you end up with stories that are half implemented, or even worse, they don't really help the customer solve the problem that was originally there. And I think that as Scrum Masters, one of the things we really need to pay attention to is the product owner standing back because they know exactly what needs to be solved and they trust the team to do it? Or are they standing back because they have no clue and they want the team to take the responsibility of figuring it out?
There's another thing that kind of popped up in my head as well, is when, and it was happening in this case, so it might have worsened the situation as well. Whenever the PO got more involved, it went way too far. Like, it went from just the functionality, it went into, okay, so do it this and this way, right? So they got way more into the details of everything, except instead of just really being specific on what the functionality should be. So he started almost designing the whole thing, or almost writing the code or whatever. And that's also like, it's that kind of dynamic that really doesn't work with a team that's not confident or experienced enough to give enough pushback at that point as well.
Absolutely. That's yet another anti-pattern.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right, enough with the anti-patterns. It's Friday after all, so let's crack open a beer and talk about the good stuff that happens. Share with us, Pascal, what might have been the best product owner you've ever worked with. How were they?
This is a while back, and they were on top of their game when it came to knowing where the product needed to be going. So they were able to say no to certain stakeholders because they were so clear on the vision of the product, and they were. Even though they were very clear in saying no, they were also at the same time really double checking their work. So it's not just saying like, okay, I want to go in this direction and that's it, and I'm not listening to anybody else. No, it was being informed, making sure that everybody knew that, okay, so if this is not the right way, they would easily contact them and say like, okay, this is not right, and they would listen. They would be well informed and make the right decision in that sense. And also, yeah, it's saying no as a PO. It's a really interesting thing.
Here's what I think. When I hear that description, I'm thinking, at least my experience is that the POs that know the best where the product should go are also the best at saying no to stakeholders. Is that your experience?
I'm not sure if those two are, that one is needed to be able to do the other thing. If you're able to say no, it doesn't mean that you have a clear way to go, or vice versa. I think the two things need to be in place to be a good PO. You need to have a clear vision. You need to be well informed and be well informing the team, the organization, your stakeholders of what your vision is. And then you'll be able to make the right decisions and to be able to say no when it's not helping in getting where you need the product to be. And I'm aware that this is really a generic thing that we're talking about. There's no clear examples of of certain tools or techniques that we're talking about right now?
Well, there is one, right? The vision. You just talked about
vision.
it.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's something that I find very critical in the development of the product owner role. And I created a free e-course. I'll put the link on the show notes to help Scrum Masters work with the PO in creating that vision. Because sometimes the PO doesn't have the time or doesn't even have the inclination to think that way. But there's certain things we can do to help them start to develop that vision, because everybody's got an identity and they need to figure out how does that identity and the product go together. Like, what kind of product would I create for this type of problems, for this type of customers, right? And that's the whole point of the vision, is to have that direction. So definitely the vision e-course, for those that are interested, it's free, so you can check it out. The link is on the show notes. But I find it very hard to believe that somebody could be very clear on the direction of the product and what problems to solve and not to solve if they didn't do this kind of thinking on their own, right?
Definitely, yeah. And I do believe that the being informed part is really critical in this as well, because it really I see it happening often when a certain vision is created. And they're not listening to the team. They're not being informed, like what's possible and what's impossible, because yes, certain things are impossible. So it's really important to have that communication going both ways, and to making sure that you do explain your vision, but you also need to be informed that whether or not that vision is plausible or feasible.
If it is the right vision for the company and for the customers, absolutely. Pascal, it's been a pleasure. We're getting close to the end, though. So before we do go, do share with us, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
You can find me obviously on LinkedIn, also on my website, which is Artocraft, so the art of crafting without the F. But we'll put a link in, I guess. Artocraft.nl. That's where I shed some light on what I do with systemic modeling and actually facilitating groups and doing lots of other things like meetups and other fun exercises and getting engaged with people in the community.
Absolutely. That's lovely, by the way. Thank you very much for doing that. It's been a pleasure, Pascal. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.